And good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H virtual event space. Extra excitement in my voice today because we have a good friend of mine, Petronella Lugemwa. Um, did I butcher it, Petronella? Did I butcher the last name? Let's start
You
right
got
there.
it, Lugemwa.
Lugemwa.
Yeah. Hey, hey.
I'll be honest. You know what it is among our team, we have this thing with legumes. We call each other legumes. So it's like burned into my head. So Petronella Lugemwa, get it
Hmm.
right.
No, no,
And
no. I've heard all the things since childhood. Petroleum. Yeah. So yeah.
I get it too. I got one of those. I have one of those last names that people will look right at it and like
And just be
enunciate it
like,
wrongly right in front of you. Yes. But huge fan of your work, Petronella, as you already know. Beautiful, beautiful wedding work, all those emotional moments that you capture, and you do it with such beauty, such grace. And that is why we have the wonderful Stella Pro Lights sponsoring today's event, talking about a very relevant topic, five things to consider when photographing various skin tones. So it is something that people don't think about, right? When we talk about portraiture, everybody talks about lighting, everybody talks about posing, getting your subjects comfortable, but you want accurate skin tones, you want skin tones that's pleasing, and that is why we brought on a professional to talk about it for us. So welcome, Petronella. It's been a long time coming. We were supposed to have you in person, but the virtual thing works. I'm going to turn it over to the woman of the hour, Petronella, and show's yours.
all right. Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you, B&H, for having me. Thank you, Stellar Pro, for sponsoring. Super excited to be here. How's everyone? I'm used to usually talking to people in person and connecting. So this is a little bit weird, but I'm gonna make it work. And hopefully, wherever you are, if you're in your PJs, vacuuming, laundry, whatever, we'll still vibe. Hopefully, you feel my vibes. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my presentation. All right, so today I'm so excited to share this with you guys. I love this topic means so much to me. So I'm going to be talking about 5 things to consider when photographing people of varying skin tones, and super excited about it. Thanks for joining. So if you're here and you're like, okay, am I in the right place? What's she gonna talk about? Um, so wherever you are, whatever you're doing, raise your hand if this is you. You're in the right place and no one can see you but yourself, but this will just help us vibe together. So you're in the right place if, one, you didn't realize you have to make adjustments when photographing people of various skin tones. So raise your hand. I'm raising my hand. Yay, Ron raised his hand. Go, Ron. 2, you're curious about what else you can do to more authentically capture people of varying skin tones. Yay, David, I see you. Okay. Or 3, you have an upcoming shoot and you want to do your best and you just kind of want to check off and make sure, hey, dot I's, P's, Q's, all that good stuff. Hey, Sam, I see you raising your hand there. Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. That helps because I'm like talking to the computer right now. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I'm not going to go into the whole biography, but my name is Petronella Lugemwa. I own Petronella Photography, which is a destination wedding and family photography business based out of the New York area. My specialty is helping multicultural couples celebrate their love in a modern way. And it's something that's so dear to me, and I'm super passionate about it. I was born in a small village in Kampala, Uganda, and then we moved to Zimbabwe, and then to Kenya, and then to Birmingham, Alabama when I was 10 years old. So since then, I've been all over the world. I've lived in 11 cities worldwide. So cultures and people is something that excites me. I love it. I'm always learning. I hope to learn from you guys. And I'm always learning. I'm always excited to sort of understand what matters to people. And this is a topic that across the world, people are really passionate about this. And we're going to dive into that and see what that looks like. So, all right. So I'm going to empower you with some basic foundational concepts that'll help you create images that help make your clients of various skin tones really look and feel good. And I want to emphasize the fact that these are foundational concepts. There's a quote by Elon Musk. I think he says, like, you have, like, knowledge is like a tree, and you have to build the tree and the branches before you start putting on the leaves, something like that. But basically, I'm not going to go super in depth into technical. We're all of varying, cameras and different equipment and all of that. But I'm going to start off with the foundational concepts, because without these concepts, it doesn't matter what you have. You still might not get it right. So let's start off and build the tree and the branches, and then we can add the leaves and the other parts later. All right. So this is why this topic really matters. So there are skin tone biases due to the Shirley card, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Number two, your clients will want to share your photos if their skin tones don't look great. And you want to share. We put a lot of work. We want our clients to share our work and feel really good about themselves, and want to, put it out into the world. The fourth thing is just not all photography equipment is really set up to accurately account for varying skin tones. So with these insights, this is why this really matters. All right, so the Shirley card. Okay. I don't know if you've heard about the Shirley card, but it was created by Kodak, which really was the leading color photography company and set the standard for editing and shooting. So the Shirley card was really a way to verify if the light and colors and skin tones were right. But the catch is, it was invented, I want to say the 1940s, 1950s. The catch is the Shirley card was based off one type of skin tone. So it was a lady who looked like this, and these are actual Shirley cards, but it was only a Caucasian lady. So for years and years, this was sort of the standard. And Kodak would get messages from families of different skin tones, and they would be like, hey, I used the camera and I got back my prints and I look bad, or, you can't see me, I'm invisible, or, and it was sort of brushed under the rug. It wasn't a big deal. But it's funny because when I believe furniture companies and chocolate companies came and said, hey, we have different, variations of chocolate or furniture, and, it all looks the same. So can something be done about this? And so in 1995, 1996, Kodak came up with a multiracial Shirley card, and it had an Asian woman, a Caucasian woman, and a Black woman, which was great, but it still didn't touch on the full spectrum of all the different people and skin tones that are out there. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, this set the standard for the calibration of skin and color balance. And then of course you have all the equipment, which is sort of like, this is what things should look like. So with that, now we jump into 2020 and 2021, and you have these amazing covers which are created. But then on the right, it's Kamala Harris on the Vogue cover. And there was a lot of controversy because in this particular image, her face and her skin tone is significantly overexposed and lighter than what she really is. And then on the right, with Simone Biles, she looks significantly darker. That is not her actual skin color. And even as you look at the rest of the images within, from the shoot, it's all over the place. Like some of them are really orangey, some of them are lighter in some places. And so there's a lot of controversy about this because skin tone is not, I mean, we all know this, but skin tone is not just about colors, but skin tone can really convey perceptions and meanings. And across cultures, different skin tones can really communicate beauty, health, strength, sadness, a lot of emotion. So getting this right really matters. So with that, stay tuned till the end of this presentation, I'm going to be sharing some additional resources, hopefully, which will go together with the concepts that I'm sharing. So with that, yay, let's talk about the 5 things to consider when photographing people of various skin tones. All right, so the first one is pay attention to your client's true to life skin tone color. Okay, so you're probably like, this is mad basic, duh, of course I should do this. But I would say in my experience, this is a super, super important and crucial thing to do, even before you pull out your camera. All of that is really understanding what is this person's true to life skin tone color. And I will say, I have been photographed by several different amazing photographers. And I found that when I have this conversation with photographers who maybe not as familiar with my skin tone, when I have that conversation and we talk and we're like, oh, this is what you know, I always end up feeling really proud and excited about my images. And when this conversation isn't had and I get back my images and I'll show you some of those images, I'm like, oh, this isn't okay, it's not quite how I look. And I'm not as excited to share. And even in one example, I've never publicly shared the images because I just look really, really bad. So I would say it seems obvious and easy, but pay attention. So we talked about the Shirley Card earlier, and we talked about how in 1996 they introduced the multiracial Shirley Card. And so the world opened up a little bit more, and it was kind of like, okay, there's more than just the initial Shirley Card. And so how this showed up in the rest of the world, I actually worked in marketing at a couple of makeup companies. And so the world started to look like this. Like people started to recognize the spectrum's a little bit bigger, but it still was kind of limited. Even the 1996 Shirley Card was kind of like, it's still limited. We're still messing up a couple people's skin tones. Personally, for me, I would, when I'd go to the makeup store, I would buy like 3 different shades, and I'd go home and I would mix the shades to make sure I got the right shade for myself, because I knew, hey, the dark one is way, way, way too dark, and this one is a little bit too pink or orange. And so, and this has continued on. I actually reached out to my sister because she worked in film in Hollywood years ago. And she said, oh, the same thing happened with her when she was making films. They would pull out the Shirley Card and certain people would look good and other people wouldn't look good. So this is something that's kind of been around, but this is before. Now we know that people are having a greater awareness that there's a full range and spectrum, and really having this insight going into a shoot as you're shooting different people is going to help you really recognize that and make sure that you're nailing people's skin tone. So the spectrum is growing. It's super, super exciting. With Fenty and some new people coming at, like, opening up the range of skin colors, it's super, super exciting for people like me because I don't have to go home and like mix the colors together. And so the awareness is super, super important. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is ask your clients to describe how they see them. Oh, the way you do that is you ask your clients to describe how they see themselves. So I was in Thailand last year in January, and I reached out to this amazing photographer. His name is Taj Pasit. And I said, hey, I want some portraits. Let's, cool, let's vibe, all this good stuff. And I had a conversation with him like, hey, this is how I see myself. I am a milk chocolate color. So when you're editing the photos, think about milk chocolate. And given that he didn't have a lot of experience shooting people of my skin tone, it was interesting. We had that conversation. He delivered the images, and I love the images. I'm so proud of them. But I believe it's that conversation of us talking about, okay, how do you see yourself? What does that look like? That was really helpful in him nailing those photos. I love my photos. The second thing is talk to other photographers who are familiar with different skin tones. This is something I personally do sometimes. Like I'll reach out to all kinds of friends and I'm like, hey, I did this. What do you think? It was a little bit of all this stuff going on. What do you think of this? Should I add this? What should I do? Different cultures Skin means different things. Like if it's over bright, yeah, we'll talk more about that. Okay, so the second point is observe how light impacts your client's skin tone. And this sounds like, well, duh, we're photographers, that's what we're gonna do. But I would say go a step further, and I'm gonna show you what I consider as I am shooting different groups of people and what I'm thinking about in terms of how do I position them and what's going on with the light. The questions to ask yourself are, where is the light? What color is the light? And I currently right now, I have a Stella 2000 completely lighting me because I know I need it to fill it in. But yeah, understanding where's the light, where is it coming from, what is it gonna make me look like? Tip number 2, and this is super, super, super important. I see this with photos that have been shot of me and sometimes with other people is there adequate lighting to visibly see the details in your client's face and hair? This is so, so important. If you don't take away anything else, take away this one point because it's gonna elevate your photography and take you to the next level. And if there's not, how do you position your client to look better? So I was out, I want to say in Soho, no, maybe Chinatown. And I wanted to show you what the lighting does to my screen because for many years, I've heard, oh, hold on. I've heard, oh, this is the best light. Backlight is always the best. And I'm like, I don't agree. Like, it's not always the best for different skin tones. So let's check out this video. So as you can see, there's that. There's the guy. Okay, all right. So that video is just a basic video just to demonstrate that light looks different. Like if you notice my skin is reddish brown, then it's like super dark and shadows, and then there's a hot spot. Paying attention to these details as you're shooting is going to make a difference in how you shoot and recognizing, wait a minute, maybe this person looks too cool or whatever, warm or whatever, and how can I make this work better? One thing that I like to share, especially when if you're photographing two people of different skin tones, like an interracial couple, like this couple, is to know that the human eye gravitates to the brightest part of an image first. So what that means is, in particular, even for myself, when I am shooting and I have a couple, I actually force and train my brain to focus just as much attention and focus on somebody who has a darker skin tone, because I know I'm predisposed to focus on the lighter and just focus on that. And so what that means is, if you're so focused on the person with the brighter, you're focused on the brighter or the lighter skin tone, you're going to forget about the other person. Maybe they're not going to be lit as well, or it's going to show up in what you shoot and how you add lighting. So super, super important to consider that. And I've trained my brain to literally look at both people because I know it naturally is predisposed to do the other thing. The other thing is determine if you need additional light to visibly see your client's facial and hair features, depending on your style and mood. But these details really, really matter. No one wants to feel invisible. So it's important to consider that. And a couple things that I do. Right now I have a Stella 2000 light, but Light in Motion, they have an amazing Portrait Plus kit that I use in times when I'm and I'll show you some examples at the end, when I'm lighting groups of people, or even, I don't know if you know, but like flash doesn't always, like most speed lights aren't made to recognize darker skin tones. So you need a pop of light and then the flash. And so I will sometimes bring in some additional continuous lighting just to have the flash be like, okay, that's where that person is, and let's shoot and get going. So right now I'm using the Stella 2000. It helps fill me in. Without it, I would be dark and I would look washed out and a little bit greenish because I have a bunch of green stuff around here as well. So Adding that light to make sure that you can see your client's skin tone, eyes, facial features is really, really important as well. The third point is, how does the background color impact your client's skin tone? So this is important. Another conversation I had with Touch Pasit when we were in Thailand is paying attention to the background. If you have, like, I'm milk chocolate, if there's a super wooden or dark background behind me, I would recommend adding some separation and maybe a hair light, some backlight, so that there's separation with the people and you can clearly see the details and that person doesn't go invisible along with the background. So, and then in different situations, so something I'm always also considering, I shoot a lot in Central Park, and sometimes during the summertime, it's super, super hot, but I know that when the light hits the green grass, it reflects and looks different on different skin tones. So on my skin, if it's high noon and you put me in super, super green and that light is bouncing off the grass and, you know, onto me, I'm gonna look like it's Halloween time, and it's not cute. So, so knowing, but other people, other skin tones might look a little bit differently. So having that understanding and always paying attention to, hey, what's going on, and how is the background and the environment affecting the client's skin tone. The fourth point is, how is your client positioned relative to the light source? Let me give you some examples. So in particular, with large groups of people, this is one of the things that I immediately pay attention to is, where is everyone? What are their skin tones? Because I know something, with most lenses, the ends vignette and gets considerably darker. So if you have darker skin toned people on the edges, they're naturally going to go invisible, and you don't want that. You want everyone to look good and feel good. And so if I'm on the go and I don't have time to set up lights, I will go through, and I know that the middle is brighter, so I will place those people in the center, and then maybe the lighter skinned people on the edge, because I don't have any additional light, but just depends on the situation. So this is one of those examples where I'm arranging people. I had a bright light coming in on the right, and I wanted the little girls in the back and the bride and her, I want to say her maid of honor. But there's a reason why I positioned everyone the way I positioned them in this image. And I'm going to take you through an example. All right, so here's an example. Let's say I have a bridal party, and let's say I have a bride and groom, and I have to position them together, and I'm like, okay, I'm just looking at everyone. My first priority is always making sure that the most important people are in the center. So whatever skin tone they are, making sure that they're not. If it's a group of people who are all, it doesn't matter where they stand, mom, dad, or couple, then I will mix up the people. And if I don't have any additional light, or the light is pretty even, I will place the darker skinned people with darker skin tones in the middle, because I know in my lens that is the brightest part of the image, and the ends tend to vignette and get darker. Does that make sense? Oh, this is hard with, hi everyone. Okay, and so this is what I might do. This is just one scenario, but again, I'm always thinking about who is important, who matters, who needs to be in the center. And then if I'm in a situation where this is like a family portrait session or a really, really important thing, I'm considering what are the light sources coming in on the right or left. So I showed a bridal party photo, and I knew there was a big bright window over there, which is why I placed everyone the way I placed them, is because I knew across the board, everyone would be nice and evenly lit. So I may add 2 lights on the ends to just make sure, like, let's say the bride and groom have a lighter skin tone and they're in the middle, and maybe I have people who have darker skin tones and they have to be on the end. I'm going to make sure there's some light sources so that everyone is beautifully lit. And because I know that the ends tend to darken significantly, but it's also something I'll account for in post as well. Okay, so the final point is edit your images to strike a good balance between making a client's skin tone look authentic and maintaining your style. So This is important as well. I can always tell when I get back images from a photographer, sometimes my experience has been, you can clearly tell when somebody's like, this is my style and it is what it is. And, you know, and I feel like I'm an afterthought to that person's style. And so my recommendation, I always edit to make sure the client's skin tone looks good. And then I also incorporate my flavor on top of that. And I try to balance the two so the client feels good about their photos and I'm still able to maintain who I am and my brand. So with that, let's talk about the most common editing mistakes. This is after the shoot, you're like, yes, nail the style. So you're going into whatever editing software you have. So it makes me laugh. So the most common mistake I would say that I've seen and I've experienced myself is the super, super orangey look, like the radioactive orangey orangutan. I call it the Oompa Loompa look. This happened to me actually not too long ago, like 2-3 months ago. And I went to the photographer and I was like, oh my gosh. I went to this person and I said, hey, I look like an Oompa Loompa. And they're like, what's an Oompa Loompa? And I was like, oh, it's from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I shared this image and they got it. And then they went back and they recalibrated their, I think it was the computer or their editing or something. And we got the images looking better. But the thing is, just assuming all presets work as is on all skin tones, it's important to adjust your presets. People have different undertones. There's cools, there's warms, there's darks. So again, going back to that original question of paying attention, understanding what your client looks like and what they want to look like is going to help you avoid this super orangey Oompa Loompa look. I wish I could hear everyone. Are people laughing? All right, so the second most common mistake that I see, and this sometimes with people who have very dark, moody look, and so this is an image, one of my images, and I tried to really like make it kind of like what other people have seen. I've seen worse where the client is turned away from the light source and then it's edited very dark and moody. So all you see is floating eyes and teeth. And that is like, no one wants that. But yeah. So definitely don't do this. And I would say if you have a more moodier look, you can still, again, brighten up the features, the facial features in your client's face. He had more of a chocolatey brown skin tone. So just making sure that, edit it in such a way that you can see that and not where it's just a pair of floating eyes and teeth. It feels silly and like, oh, duh, I would never do this, but it has happened. So I'm sharing. Okay. So here's some more common editing mistakes. So you guys saw my picture at the very beginning of this presentation. And these are actual images. So I have this image and it's edited and I love it the way it is. But I'm always fascinated because when I send it out, some people go back and they're like, this is not what she should look like. Let's tweak it a little bit. And then I see my photo and I don't know, some marketing material and I'm like, So of course, the one on the left, I'm super, super orangey. And I believe the final one was a little bit more orangey than this. The one on the far right, it's super, super cool. I actually look like I'm dying. My health, like I was like, oh my gosh, people probably think I'm sick or something. Very, very cool. I've been edited much cooler than that before. And then the second one from the right is whitewashed. And so for me, when I get back my image or I see my image where I'm like, this is what I look like. And then somebody's like, I don't like the way you look. I'm going to edit you the way I think you should be. That sends it sends a bad feeling for me. So like to see the whitewashed image, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this person wants me to be more Caucasian or something. Maybe that's why I'm so, brightened up. And I understand stylistically that works for some people, so that's fine. But again, just understanding, maintaining that balance between who you are, what's your style, and who is this person and what do they really look like and what's going to make them proud to share. And the great thing is your clients usually are able to see your work and recognize, okay, this is this person's style. This is what I can expect my milk chocolate skin tone to look like once this person applies their style on it. So, and the correct one is the second one from the left. That's how I'm like, yes, that's me. All right, so the key takeaways. So those are 5 key takeaways. Again, very foundational concepts, paying attention to your client's true to life, skin tone, color, asking them, hey, how do you see yourself? And then thinking, okay, when I'm editing, what would milk chocolate look like with my preset or my, with my style? Observe how light impacts your client's skin tone. Light is going to significantly look different across different skin tones. Not all light is great for all skin tones. I didn't share this, but did I share this? Backlight. A lot of people are always like, oh, backlight is so beautiful. And I'm like, no, it's not. If you have somebody with significantly darker skin tone and you have a hot spot and he's bald or something, that's like, nah, he's not going to be, that's just not an image that he'll be proud of. So how does the background color impact your client's skin tone? So paying attention to the environment and how it's interacting with your client's skin tone. How is your client positioned relative to the light source? And do you need to add additional light to support, to make sure you can see all their details? And finally, editing your images to strike a good balance between making the client's skin tone look authentic and maintaining your style. These are the 5 key points. And so you're like, yes, can I get some resources? Can I practice this in real life? I got something for you. All right. So head to bypetronella.com/BNH skin tones. If you were taking notes, if you weren't taking notes, I have a summary recap of all these tips and lighting resources, which include links, direct links, so you can buy the portrait kit if you're interested in that. I'll also be planning some editorial shoots with models of varying skin tones and launching presets with different, which have been, I spent most of 2020 really working on some presets, which take into account different skin tones. So I'm excited about that. So sign up to be the first to be notified of future editorial shoots. The link is right there. And then the Petronella presets, which I'm super excited about. I've been working a lot last year on it. Get on the wait list, and this is a sample of what it looked like. Again, they're very classic and clean, and they're for different situations. And with that, if you want to stay in touch, you can find me, Petronella Photography, everywhere. I should be there. Try to spend most of my time on Instagram. You can find me there. And with that, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer.
That was wonderful, Petronella. You brought up so many good points and so many points that led me in like, okay, we got to discuss this. We got to discuss this. But I want to start it. Alda did have a question. So Alda is asking, once you establish the color on the Shirley card, how is that then applied? So where do you go after you nail where on the Shirley card the subject's skin tone is? Where do you go from there? How do you actually use that information in the rest of the process?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not about the Shirley card. I'm not. I actually have my own, I'm literally paying attention in person, if that makes sense. And yeah, I haven't. I can possibly, Shirley, if you can DM me, maybe I can ask my sister, because I know she did this in film. How are you using the Shirley card right now? Are you using it in photography and film? Curious to know.
Okay, so let's transition over to David. We're gonna see if we get any viewer feedback on that. So if anybody out there has any feedback, if anybody out there is using the Shirley card, see, you brought up so much information that it's like, I don't use anything. I don't use a gray card. You're like, no backlight, and I'm like, yeah, I love backlight. Petronella's gonna hate me.
You do, no, you do well though. I've seen your images. Your images are are spot on.
Thank you.
You're accounting for,
But there's a lot of things that I don't think about that you brought up as far as like, it's a big thing, and I'm glad you did touch upon it, especially at the end with the presets, is so many people filter and preset now. Now, once you get into color grading, presets, filters, if you're a Fujifilm shooter and you go into different film simulations, it's skin tone gets lumped in with the rest of the color scale. It's not like it applies color to everything else but the skin tone. How do you draw a line, or where do you draw a line, or do you draw a line in, giving something, if you're going to give say you want the look of an old vintage film, right? Say you want to give it a nice classic film feel, it's going to adjust the skin tone as it does the rest of the image. Do you mask that out? Do you pull it back? What's your thought process behind that?
Yeah, so great question. So I'm like, if it's a vintage, filter preset simulation, I'm I'm milk chocolate. If you know what, like milk chocolate, I think everyone knows what milk chocolate is. I'm like, what would milk chocolate look like with a vintage, preset? Does that make sense? So I'm
Yeah.
using that as a base. So I would totally, I'm not being like, oh, I want to look like milk chocolate and then the rest of the background looks vintagey. That feels like we're going back to the 19 editing
Just
style.
like a selective color.
Exactly. No. It's just sort of like, how would this, and I've had clients tell me, oh, I think I'm like a caramel cappuccino. And I'm like, got it. I know what that is. Okay. With my style, what would that look like in this environment? Yeah.
Yeah, if you ask me, here's mine. That's me.
Ah!
That's my I'm Xerox paper. But that leads into, because one of the conversations that we always see, we never really see this conversation as much. And I think part of it is people, it might be part of, are they're afraid to go into it, right? They don't want to offend a certain group, or they don't know how to talk about it. So you often hear the conversation of, okay, interracial couple, you have a darker skinned bride or groom, you have a lighter skinned bride or groom, and it's in regards to only exposure, and it's not in regards to color. So now we're talking about, there's not just the exposure of it, and the exposure even changes the color scale. So it's just it's like inception almost. You go you go into exposure and then it dances into color, and the more you go into color, it comes back to like light and dark and the relationship between that. So do you treat exposure separately, being that exposure is going to change the color scale?
Great question. So depends on the situation, where I am and what is going on. If I can, I try to position, like if I have the person with darker, maybe closer to the light source. So I mean, yeah, it depends on the look you're going for. And like, but yes, like if I have a huge window light, I'm going to, it's hard in virtual and we should like do
I
something
know.
in person. So because I'm like, what? I should have brought like little circle of things so I could show you. But yeah, I would put somebody with a darker skin tone, maybe closer to the light source, make sure I can see all the features in there. And then the other person beside, and then just sort of look and pay attention. I tend to focus a little bit more on skin. So yes, I overexposed the background just a little, just to make sure I can see the details in a person's skin tone. I will bring in additional light. Yes. I remember I shot a ceremony where I want to say the bride was positioned more so to the light source, and her partner was of a darker skin tone and was directly behind, like it was like backlit. So I was like, oh my God. But my assistant knew. So she brought in a continuous light source and then pointed it on him to like evenly. Yeah. So
What if you have someone? So I had a high profile client that I shot once, and she preferred to be blown out and overexposed, because obviously the effect of having your skin blown out is it washes away blemishes, and this was just her style. It was a client that I could not say no to. It's completely totally against everything I like. Oh no, my images look blown out. But the client, it was a client you can't say no to. Now, how do
Mhm.
you approach this situation where you have somebody who might say like, look, I want to be, say you have a darker skinned client who says, I want to appear 3 shades lighter, or I want to be, I see
Mhm.
myself as this, but I want to look like this.
Yeah, so you answered your own question. They told you what they like to see about them, and I have had, yeah, darker skinned people who, again, the blemishes, it does look brighter with a looks cleaner with a brighter yeah, skin
When
tone.
you
So that's what I did.
overexpose and,
Yeah, yeah.
or
The
washing dark circles out. So it's like my skin tone, my dark circles stand out. So, okay, can you shoot me over by a stop?
yeah. So that's there. Yeah. The hope is that you get people who love you for what you are and are not going to take your style and be like, let's, put you in a different camp. And yeah. But hopefully people have seen enough of your work to go like, okay, now I understand around what this person can do. And this is what I can expect. And yeah.
And is that something, I mean, I'm guessing alluding from that answer kind of alludes to these are conversations that might come up in before you even get to the big day when it's like, hey, I notice your work is like this and this is what you can expect from me.
Yeah.
Do you set that up in like the pre-discussions while you're
Yeah, yeah. You show some of your work. Hey, I have shot in this environment, which is similar to where we're going to be shooting together, and this is what you can expect. And you'll get reactions. People will talk, and they'll let you know, or you'll see them be like, so yeah.
now? Sally asks about that in particular. Says first of all, great presentation. Um,
Thank
so
you.
Sally asks, there's a lot of activity during a wedding reception. Do you use assistants, second shooters to make sure that you have enough light so that because I mean, obviously you probably need more light because in order to create in any situation, you're shaping the light that you want. How many lights do you normally shoot with during a wedding? Do you use assistants?
Great question. So, usually I scope out the location or try to understand what's going on, what's in the ceiling. Like if it's a completely white background, so light bounces off clearly. If it's dark, if I've done brick, copper, all of that difference, I sort of understand what's going on. I like to use a 3 light setup. So, um, a light on my camera, two lights, and I'm testing this out before the situation actually happens. And then my assistant has like it's like a pogo stick, and she'll have a light on there, just a little pop to just continuously. Sometimes if we're going in a dark corner, she'll just sort of bring it around. And so I'm considering that. To your point about when I am shooting, my stops vary depending on the crowd. If I know the guests are mostly, it's a dark environment, and have I shot at half? 1/4 and 1/8 is what I usually, if I know the crowd is mostly of a darker skin tone and the environment is very dark and I really, really need to nail it. If I have people who maybe the crowd is significantly um, lighter skin tone, I will go to 132. But I'm always playing around. Honestly, I'm always controlling all the lights and like looking at the environment, and just it's become second nature, but I am always thinking about that. And that is something that factors into what's going on. And then if it's a mixed crowd, 116, again, I'm testing. I'm like looking and testing maybe 116. Yeah. So
Now, David is asking about your kit in particular. So David has a couple questions. Number one, do you shoot with a combination of speed lights or strobes and continuous lights? And
yes.
also, when you travel for destinations, what's your travel kit look like?
Woo, good questions. I'm just to let you know, I like to keep things super, super simple, because when you start traveling, even worldwide, they don't allow you as much luggage as they do in the United States. Like they will literally be like, you have to leave that. So I've learned, and I keep things very light. Uh, so yes, it's 3 speed lights, and then If I'm traveling, it'll be the Stella 2000, something super, super light because the CLX10 is amazing and lights up like a whole group of people. But it's also very, yeah, I actually took it to Thailand and Malaysia and played around with it then. And yeah, so, but yeah, I like to keep things very light.
Okay. I'm the same way. Travel light. I don't go into lighting. I'm so light, I just bring a camera and a lens. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and then work with what, yeah, and then
work
understand
with
the
which,
concepts. And mhm, I'm
well,
there too.
what do you do? Does anything in your process change when you do work natural light? When do you use lighting 100% of the time, or do you ever shoot natural available light?
My preference is natural available light.
Is it?
Again, I like to be light, light, light as possible.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I mean, I can't blame you there, but
And
it's
then I
mostly
work with
because
what I look at the environment and sort of work with, okay, what's going on? And then that's when I'll pop like a small little, yeah.
just give a little bit of a kiss just to give it match that ambient light to the.
Hmm.
I got you. I'm picking up. I'm learning a little bit here.
You
These
already know
webinars are paying
it.
off.
You
These
already know
webinars.
it.
Well, and I do want to say, I was laughing when you asked if anybody was laughing. I don't have any laugh track here. We're gonna have to get a laugh track for these virtual event space. But I was laughing. Carmen was laughing. So Carmen, I saw you on Facebook laughing. Carmen was enjoying it too.
Oh,
Um, Now, something we see a lot in weddings is LED lights, or you have like these, especially if you've ever been to a wedding in New York or New Jersey, it's like all the walls are pink and purple. And that obviously, if you've ever shot in a black light or LED lights, it plays complete havoc with
mhm,
skin tones. How do you
mhm.
manage that? Is that something that you can even do anything in camera, or is that all handled in post?
Great question. So the first couple of years of photography, I would show up and then I would be like, ah, ah. Oh man, I wish I had this picture. I have a client who had all pink and it was like on the dance floor and everything. And I was like, I just like, this is what's going on. I
Freaking
did my
out.
best. Yeah, right. Now I've learned to have a conversation with clients where I talk about, hey, if you're going to have additional light, this is what I recommend. This is what it could look like if I'm not able to completely, something's going to be compromised. Either you're going to look great and it's going to be, all flashed out, or the the additional lighting is going to reflect on you and it's going to look like this. And so usually what we do is we agree that for the entrances and like cake cutting and first dances, it's usually very clean light. And even whoever is doing that lighting, it's usually the DJ, will keep it nice and clean and all of that off. When it comes to the dancing, I'm like, you can put it on we'll make it look funky and fun, and that's okay. And they're like, that's what they want. So um, yeah, but you do your best. Sometimes it is what it is, and sometimes that's what they want. They want a cool like lounge party vibe, and but having those conversations again in advance is it's golden because then everyone feels like, okay, they understand me, I understand them. This is what we're gonna get in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you set an expectation, and then you don't just have to resort to the old lazy saver move of,
Oh my
no,
God,
I'm just
it's
gonna do black and white. Let me just do this black and white. Then I don't
oh
have to worry
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. I've done that too.
Now, when in black and white, is this being that black and white it's really grayscale. Every color in the color, there's a color channel for every color translates to the grayscale. How does this do you manually adjust your black and whites? Because it's the same thing. I mean, if you look at, especially for people who use presets, if you click on different black and white presets, your skin tone, no matter what your skin tone is in color, it's going to translate, and you can translate just as differently. I can look from either being super, super, super pasty to, hey, he's got a nice tan, even in black and white.
Mhm.
How do you manage that when I think color it's a lot easier because you can say, okay, milk chocolate, this is milk chocolate. In grayscale, is it just an eyeball kind of thing?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a little bit more latitude with black and white. My goal in when it's black and white is detail in the skin and the eyes and what I know is important to them. Like maybe they have a nice beard and I want to, yeah. And I don't want it to just be like a black hole. Unless that's the vibe. Like sometimes it's the vibe, like you want like something a little bit, so it's okay. But sometimes I'm like, I really want to see this person. So playing around with the shadows and highlights, that's where you go. But yeah, again, everyone has a black and white style that they have, but then those other settings come in.
Well, I think it comes back to like the comfortability nature and what you talked about with being open and honest from the start with your clients. So if you're going to go moody, obviously, if you're going moody, if you say you have a lighter skinned person and you're going moody, you know that it's going to appear darker, or else you can't just mask off their skin and do a moody shot and like, oh, hey, hi, everything's moody but me. So it kind of, right? And that is where you set up, okay, they know what the expectation is. No one's going to say, well, hey, why am I 5 shades darker? Well, because it's a moody shot. You're supposed to look darker. Without looking like your example, the black and white one, where
like, you completely pull, the person like disappears, and yeah, I should have like added a, yeah.
I mean, the second shot was, you showed us, it wasn't, everybody has a bad, or your light doesn't go off, you misfire, you get your settings off, and then you have a little bit with that. How do you normally shoot? You have the camp of people who tend to shoot for the highlights, and then people that shoot for the shadows. Do you generally underexpose, overexpose? We're giving you the tough questions.
I know, and I'm trying
you're never going to talk to me again after this.
I know, right? I'm exposing off the skin, and then I'm looking at the light. So let's say I have someone who has very, very dark skin tone and the background is like very, very bright. And there's no, like, I don't have anything else to brighten them up. Like, I know, because you know what happens in that situation. That person's going to look like a silhouette. You're not going to see anything if you just don't think about it. So I will spot meter off their skin and completely overexpose and blow out the background, because this is what matters, seeing the details and all of that and making sure that they don't look like invisible silhouette. Oh my gosh, I wish I like...
You want that, well, no, you want the detail, and I think that's a great point. Is you have to look at what's important. What are you shooting here? Are you shooting the sky, or are you shooting the person? Did the sky hire you to take pictures of it with a person standing there? Probably not. And I think that's a trap that a lot of photographers get caught in, where say you don't have light, you don't have continuous light, you don't have a strobe, or you don't have the correct light that is going to overpower the sun, and you're shooting outside. You have to make that choice to get the subject correct. And then, hey, if the sky's blown out, the sky's blown out.
Yes. And if you have, like, I mean, I move so quickly that I got to make decisions quickly. But if I have time to set up everything and make sure everything is, looking great, then, yeah. But I'm thinking through it as I'm,
You're constantly, the wheels are turning.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it. I mean, I think this is a lot of it is situational. There's no like Petronella's crash course guide to every situation, right? Where if it's this, you got to do this. It's kind of one of those things where, okay, you might have something that comes into the scene, or you have everything all set up, and then guess what? The sun goes behind a cloud and throws your exposure completely off, and now your white balance is off, and we all know how it goes.
Exactly. But if you're constantly just paying attention, looking at your clients and being like, even, as we were setting this up, I don't know if you know, I was like running around and looking at myself, and I was like, and then the light went on and I was like, ooh, it's that sort of like, and I'm sure you with yourself, you do it as well. So.
Of course. I mean, I could.
We do it with selfie.
Like a half a stop, of course. I'm looking at myself right now, and I'm like, I need a half stop more light. I don't look like this. It's not true to me. But it's back to that. What does the client want? servicing the client, while I think there's a balance too, because you ultimately, why do we do this? We do this because we get something out of it, right? It can't be completely, and that's why where the importance is a completely different topic for another day, but finding clients that are in line with your vision, because it shouldn't be
Mhm.
having to choose between the client's vision and your vision. It should be at the very worst a compromise between the two.
Yes, absolutely. And the
Well,
client loves you. They're going to give you that latitude to play and to be like, all right, I'm going to do something, little, we're going to play around and see what happens. Yeah.
definitely. Petronella, I want to thank you. I want to thank Janine and the rest of the Light in Motion Stella Pro team for just a wonderful, wonderful presentation. You brought up a lot of great information that we don't get on a daily basis. And you really, I think sometimes it's not the information that you bring up, it's just the conversation itself. These are conversations that we need to be having. Whether or not we have the answers right away, it's something that needs to be in the forefront of our minds when we're taking images, and especially if we're taking people's money to provide a service, you want to be doing them a service and not a disservice.
I totally agree. And it starts with awareness. Once you have that, then you can, yeah. So
It all starts with the awareness. You're right. And I am going to work on my not taking backlit images and
yeah.
focus. You ruined my photography. No.
Oh man, that heart
I
attack.
just
It's
I
not
just
this
changed my phone. All right, I'm gonna start at square one tomorrow. For those of you who've been following my photography, new look starting tomorrow.
light and
But
airy.
light and airy, I'm going for it. Petronella, I can't thank you enough. This has really been a blast. Let us know again where we can find more of your work, Instagram, website, all that good stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Petronella Photography. You can find me there if you want the summary website /BH skin tones. And yeah, find me on Instagram, Petronella Photography. Thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed this and I hope it was insightful and empowering for you.
It was awesome. It was better than that. Super, super, super insightful, empowering, entertaining, informative, all those great adjectives. On behalf of all of our viewers, because I know they enjoyed it as well, want to thank you. And again, thank the rest of the Stella Pro Lights team over there. David says, awesome. Thank you. Matt, who is one of our Matt, you're a regular, Matt. We love you, Matt. So Matt Spinetta out there just said this was great. Thank you. But all of you guys, we love all of our viewers. Thank you guys again for tuning in for another hour of information and my silliness. Such a pleasure to get to do this with you guys every day. So Petronella, we look forward to having you back here. And then once everything gets back to in person, we're gonna, so
Yes.
you don't have to do the whole like invisible, like invisible man number one is gonna stand over here. You got to put invisible, woman number two behind invisible man number one. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get, we'll get a nice range of skin tones. We're gonna see how you do it in person, and it'll be great. But huge thank you again, Petronella, for coming on. To the rest of our viewers, thank you guys. Another rendition of the B&H virtual event space is in the books. We'll catch y'all next time.